Welcome to another Straight Up Tuesday tip. I'm 𝗤𝗃𝗀𝗀𝗃. With me as always is Mark Ainley. And with us again is Sharad Mehta. For those who didn't listen to our last Tuesday tip, Sharad has done hundreds of deals. He's the owner of 𝗬𝗃𝗶𝗵𝗵𝗁, which is a CRM platform made to help you automate your tasks. Just a ton of knowledge on automation and direct marketing. So we talked last time about how to obtain your list that you might look to direct market. And on today's episode, what we're going to do is talk through, now that we have the list, how do we actually go about sending out mailers? So Sharad, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me for the third time.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, man. Keep providing value. We'll keep having you come back.
Absolutely.
So let's talk through now. We're going to make the assumption that everyone has listened to the last Tuesday tip. We figured out how do I get my leads. I've gotten this Excel sheet from ListSource, PropStream, whatever it may be. Walk us through now. What should they do next? How do I get to a point where I'm actually having people call me? So the next step is?
The next step is, so once you have the list, it's really important that you have a separate tracking number to track, what marketing the list is coming from. I'll give you a quick example. Let's say if you have two lists, list one, list two, you send 1,000 pieces to list one, 1,000 pieces to list two, use the same phone number, and you get 100 people call you back, and you buy a property out of it. How do you know which list actually people call from and which list did you buy the property from? So it's really important that you have a separate tracking phone number for each list that you're mailing to. It's very, very inexpensive. Don't use your cell phone number. Use a VoIP number. Again, if you're using 𝗬𝗃𝗵𝗵𝗫 or a platform like that, it's very standard to use a separate tracking number. So once you have done that, and let's say you're mailing to your absentee vacant list, right? So we're going to use that as an example. You have 500 people on that list. You have a separate phone number that's tracking your absentee vacant list. You send out, so now you have to choose whether you're sending out postcard, you're sending out a letter, yellow letter, or business letter. I always recommend that send out postcard. It's the least expensive direct mail. And the good thing with that is even after you scrubbed your list and everything, there's going to be some addresses on that list that are going to come back as returned. So that's an inexpensive way to, scrub your list even further to see which ones are undeliverable. So you want to send out postcard. Again, some people get very, passionate about what design to use, what color to use, what their logo should look like, what their font should look like. It's all great, but if there's one thing that you want to make sure you do, it is send consistently. Even if you have to just to automate the process, even if you send the same postcard every other month or so, just do that. Don't worry so much about the color, the font, the logo. If you have it, great. But if not, just pick, all the direct mail houses have some design that will specifically go real estate investors. Then what you want to do is you want to have some call to actions. So when you're sending out direct mail, you want to address to the owner, you want to have your return address. So any postcards or letter that are sent back, then you can track those, which ones did not get delivered. You want to have at a minimum your phone number, right? You don't want to send out postcard or letter without your phone number, because most of the people that are going to call you, most of the people that get your postcard letter, they would want to call you. And then if you have a website, put your website information on there if you want. So then, they can go check you out on your website to, see your legit business, how many people you've helped with. So phone number, website, email, you could do that. We've seen some people reply through email, but at a minimum, phone number is absolutely required. And then give them an option. I mean, if it's a VoIP number that you're tracking, just give them an option to, hey, text or call. Some people may feel more comfortable with texting. Some people may feel more comfortable with calling. So you want to do that, give them options. And again, if you have a website, you can do that. Some people, may want to check you out and contact you through your website. So you have those options also. So once you've sent your direct mail out, then after that, you want to make sure the phone number that they're going to call back on or text back on is set up professionally. Again, ideally it shouldn't be a personal cell phone. But even if it is, even that's what you end up doing, change your voicemail so it sounds a little bit professional. It's like, hey, it's your boy Joe, leave a message, just make it sound a little bit more professional. Hey, you've reached ABC Properties. Sorry, we're not able to take your call. Please leave your name, phone number, and we'll get back to you. Or, it's always a good idea to have an answering service, because when these people are calling back, that's when they're absolutely most motivated to sell their property. So you want to, as much as possible, you want to have somebody answer your calls live to be able to get them to schedule an appointment with you, especially if you're working full time. I mean, it's very inexpensive. Like a company like Call Porter, that's all they do is work with real estate investors, and they can take your calls. You can set it up where if you don't pick up the call, it goes to them. So it's very inexpensive way to do that. So at least every time somebody is answering your call. And then once you start getting those calls, even if somebody is wanting too much for their properties, when you're starting out, always go on appointments. It's always a good idea to go on as many appointments as possible when you're starting out. Even if the previous episode we talked about, if you have somebody wanting to sell their $100,000 property for $100,000, you're not going to buy that property because there's no money to be made. But it's still a good idea when you're starting out to go walk through the house. If for nothing else, you're going to come up with a process that you can use. What will happen is if you go on an actual appointment with a seller that has a good property to sell, if you don't have the processes, what might happen is you might walk through the properties and you might forget to walk the basement, for example. That's happened. That's happened with me. I know that's happened with a lot of other investors. So those are the things, as you go on more and more appointments, you start coming up with the process. You want to make sure simple things like you're walking the entire the property on the outside to make sure there's no damage on the front, back, or side. Checking the roof, checking windows. Is the property on a septic or sewer? Is it on well water or city water? Those are simple things. Like you want to go into the basement and make sure like the walls are not bowing. So those are the things that are that the systems and processes you can start creating initially by going on as many appointments as possible. And the more people that you talk to, the more comfortable you will get. It's a little bit nerve-wracking initially, when you start getting calls. A lot of people are going to call back saying, hey, take me off the list. Don't ever call me, and some people will actually take time to write your letter or postcard back and saying, hey, take me off your mailing list. Don't ever mail me. So the more people you talk to, the more comfortable you will get, the better you'll feel on how to answer questions or how to talk to somebody who might be on the fence. They want to sell their property, but they're not highly motivated. So those are the things you can get more and more comfortable with by talking to as many sellers, going on as many appointments as possible.
So Sharad, we send out letters, someone actually calls back. And I know just from making calls, usually the first question is, what can you offer me? Right. What are you going to, you reached out to me. What can you give me for my property? How do you respond to that?
What I would say is that, we make an offer based on the condition. And then it's always a good idea to be honest with them. Tell them, look, I'm an investor. I'm looking to make, money on this. I do this as a business. So, I'm looking to make some profit on the property. So we make an offer based on the condition of the property, especially when you're starting out. After certain properties, you'll get comfortable enough to know the value of the property where you can make an offer, but always insist on walking through the property. If not, if they have pictures or videos, ask them to send you pictures and videos of the property, if nothing else. But just don't make an offer over the phone, because then the seller is going to use that price as an anchor. Let's say if it's $100,000 property and you make an offer of $70,000, but the house might only be worth $50,000. But once you have offered $70,000, the seller is always going to use that as their anchor to negotiate with you.
Yep, that makes complete sense.
Yeah. Even to this point, even when we get a property under contract, we always have a clause in our contract that we need to walk through the property with a contractor, otherwise we won't buy it.
Yep. So, and now I guess what should someone expect? They download 1,000 names. You talked about, you might only get, if we get 1,000 names, we might only get I forgot the number. It was 0.5% actually replying to us, which would be 50. Out of those 50, how many do you think you actually end up walking the property? I know it's just ballpark.
It's actually the 0.5% would be 5 calls. It's pretty.
I'm bad at math. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's okay. No, I just want, that's okay. But I just want people to have realistic expectations. Like when they're sending out 1,000 pieces of mail, that they're not going to get 50. 50 would be amazing. I mean, you did something right, if you get 50 calls. But yeah, I mean, typically you would get 0.5 to 1%. If you're really, really good, you might get up to 2%, but that's very, very rare, but 0.5 to 1%. So sorry, what was the question?
So let's say we have 10 people calling us back.
Right.
How many of those do you actually end up walking the property and making an offer on?
Maybe 2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say 70 to 80% would go on. Either they would be taken off the future mailing, or they would go on some sort of follow-up. Most of our deals come from follow-ups. We very rarely have somebody call and say, hey, this is a $100,000 property. It needs 30,000. I want to sell it to you for 20,000. Can you do it? It will happen. It has happened. But most of the people are going to be, hey, my neighbor's house sold for $100,000. I want at least 95 for it. And, they don't consider the fact that it actually needs $30,000 worth of repairs. But again, I would still walk through that property initially if they have equity, because the worst that's going to happen is they're going to say no to an offer, but it doesn't hurt you to at least make an offer on the property. And as much as possible, give them a written offer. If you're going to go walk the property, give them an actual written signed offer.
Awesome. Oh, great information. As managing broker, I just want to put out there real fast, the licensing laws in Illinois have changed recently, right, where a lot of these activities require you to be licensed. So if you're the managing broker, make sure you know what you're doing. If you work for a managing broker, make sure they know what you're doing, whether it be some of the language or disclosure you have to do on the actual advertisement, or the way that you're disclosing to people when they actually call you. So I just want to throw that out there to be careful, because that is something that's pretty new to this industry.
Absolutely, Mark. That's a great point. Yeah. So everything that I'm saying, just please run it by your attorney to make sure you're not doing anything that's illegal. So what I'm saying is, like, this is what we're doing in our market in Northwest Indiana. So it's very specific to our market. Chicago, even though it's across the border, it's a whole different market. So you want to make sure.
Do you need to be licensed in Indiana?
No.
Okay. So in Illinois, they passed that about 2 years ago. So
right.
Cool.
Right.
All right. Awesome information.
Yeah, but we're closing on every property, so we don't really like wholesale. We close on everything.
Gotcha.
Which is a little bit different. Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah. So all the more reason, make sure you check with your broker, or that you are a broker here in Illinois.
Good stuff. All right, Mark, you nailed the post office one last time, so I got another mailing one for you here. All right, and I'll let you decide if you want multiple choice or not.
Okay.
So there was a recent analysis of the 50 worst performing post offices in the nation. How many of those out of the 50 worst ones are in Illinois? And would you like multiple choice here?
Yeah, give me multiple choice.
All right. So is it A, 3, B, 7, C, 12, or D, 16?
I'm going to say C12.
Sharad, what do you want to go with?
I'll go with 12 also.
It was B7. We're not that bad, guys. We only have
we
only have 35% of the worst performing offices in the nation.
I know. Yeah. When you look at 50 states, it should really be no more than 1, but they have 7. So yeah.
I was thinking about the other day how they, like someone like Amazon can't take it and privatize it, like, and do a way better job, like eventually, like where it goes. I don't know. All right. Awesome, guys. That's a whole nother topic, but awesome show. Sharad, thanks for coming back. You're always adding value. So we appreciate that. Tom, awesome show. Everyone, head over to our website where, again, we're going to be having some stuff coming soon on off-market properties. But then also we have all these other resources, investor stories. If you know anyone that has a good investor story, we've had we had a guest on in the past about the tenant stole their car. Like, if you have any crazy stories, we'd love to have you share your experience, not only for helping other people learn, but then sometimes it's just therapy for you, getting past some messed up things that have happened in your investing career. Tom, good show. Sharad, thank you guys. And we'll see you soon.
Thank you guys for having me.
See you guys.